Hello and welcome back to the LFC Transfer Room YouTube channel. Today we are joined by myself, Charlie, and two other lovely gentlemen. Jack, I'll start with you. How are you doing today across the pond?
Wonderful. Woke up real late today. Got a day off from work. It's Memorial Day for us. I assume that's not a holiday in England.
No.
Okay.
It's Bank Holiday Monday today, which is
Oh,
nice. So
there you go. Both got a holiday day off, so it's been a lovely day so far. Lovely weather where I'm at, so no complaints here.
yeah, I'm Matty. Yourself? It's been a nice day today. I went to Knowsley Safari Park with a little one. Had a little look around. Didn't go into baboons, but had a good laugh at people ripping off their wing mirrors and license plates. But how'd you get up to anything nice today?
I've been in work this morning, getting over the Everton defeat really, and then just chilling in the garden. It looks like it's nice all week here, doesn't it? Which is rare. Looks like it's a belter all week I made up, and yeah, good.
Yeah, a belter for us is 20 degrees, which not sure what that
Yeah,
is in Fahrenheit,
I said this to
but
Jack
that's just
stream,
that.
and he was like, "Oh, it's 31 here and it's cold." Like I was like, "What?"
Yeah, that's the same with Drew. Drew says, "Oh, it's like 32 degrees here. I've got my coat on." I'm like, "Mate, that's no shit weather over here." But it is lovely to have you guys on and everybody in the comments. Make sure you do leave a like, get your comments, and we're bringing them up as usual. But today it's going to be a very special show. I did try to get all three of them on, but before the season started, we had a reaction. We did a prediction to our predicted Premier League table. This was with Louis, who moved on to great things, but sadly couldn't join us. Jack, Matty, and James. Sadly, James couldn't join us today, so I'll be stepping in for him. But we're going to be looking over their Premier League prediction, which not ideal, lads. We've had a little
No.
look at it before I show it to everybody. It is a bit of a shocker. I'll bring the actual Premier League table up. I'm sure, sadly, everybody has seen it. Now the season is officially over. Um, I'll I won't run through it. We'll go through it one by one. But lads, it's I'll let you get your excuses in before we show everybody what happened. I mean, I did it the year before, and I think I got it pretty spot on. But use free, yeah, it is a bad one, isn't it?
We'll blame James and Louis. All right, Maddie. Just any decision that's kind of weird. It's like it was James and Louis. That was they pulled the strings on that one. I think it was a weird season. It was a weird season in a lot of ways. Like the World Cup threw things off. There was some uneducated guesses. Like Brighton are the one that I think is going to irritate me the most. Like they didn't come out of nowhere, but they switched managers and they were even better after losing their manager. So I think they were the one that's going to be the most embarrassing because we had them in a pretty bad spot. But I don't know. We dealt with what we had on hand, Maddie. I'm not too mad at us.
Yeah, Matty, you're going to be researching this summer, aren't you, to try and not get as embarrassed as you are today?
Yeah, I mean it is bad, but it like in our defense, Liverpool had a shocker of a season that no one expected on the back of a quadruple run last year. Like Jack said, Brighton, no one expected them to be better after Graham Potter, and they certainly was. The sides that we've put in my positions, but I don't think anyone expected Arsenal to maintain a title charge. Nobody expected Newcastle to get top four in the first year with the Saudis. So it's been a mad season, to be honest with you. So I'm disappointed in the predictions, but I don't think we done terrible given the fact there was a World Cup thrown in the middle. Some sides benefited from that, some didn't. It was a weird season, a very weird season. Like when you look at the table, Fulham the 10th. Like why? How? You know what I mean? It's crackers.
Yeah, so it's I'm gonna pull it up now, lads. Apologies that it's you can kind of see the format at the top, but we move. This was the lads' Premier League prediction. We are gonna go through it one by one, see where where we placed them and where they actually placed. Have a little discussion around their season in general. So let's start off with who we had finishing bottom, Bournemouth. a team who, in fair, everyone expected to go straight up, straight back down. After we smashed them 9-0, they got rid of Scott Parker, which I think a lot of people at the time thought bit of a mad decision. Turned out to be absolutely the correct decision. And is it Gary O'Neill, I think his name is? O'Neill done absolute wonders. Got them to 50th in the league. But Jack, I'm not going to be this harsh on you for this one. I think it was a certainty, as certainty could be.
Mm-hmm.
But Bournemouth had a great season, didn't they? After we smashed them 9-0, they really got going.
It was so confusing. Like the season made no sense. Didn't we drop points against them in the reverse fixture? No, I mean, like they made the right choice. And when you get hammered 9-0, you probably should move your manager on. You probably should change things around because that's just kind of weird, like to lose that badly. But I don't know. There is no reason to explain how you're able to go from that position of getting thumped by an admittedly very good clinical Liverpool team to a respectable finish for a team returning to the Prem. So I think my big thing that I'm gonna say today is like teams are closer to, and players individually are closer to being good than they are to being crap, because these players are all close to the top 1% of the sport that's played globally. And if you just get a few more things, small things right, you can turn a team from quite poor to quite good really quickly. I think that margin's a lot thinner than we may consider. You see a lot of teams with some big turnover year on year. It goes the other way too. Liverpool, a team that was very good last year, the margins are very thin. So a few things just change very slightly, and then the entire complexion changes. But honestly, with Bournemouth, I couldn't even describe how they managed to stay in the Prem this year, and credit to them for that. But like, they don't have a squad that you would consider capable of staying in the Prem. But they shut us all up. They're going to be here for another year. So credit to them for that.
Yeah, I mean, Matty, Jack just said there, you look probably at the teams who got relegated. On paper, they all have stronger squads than Bournemouth. But, Gary O'Neill, as we've said, he's worked absolute wonders, hasn't he?
Yeah, no one expected them to stay up. I don't think they even made any signings at the end of summer, or one or two for very little money. So no one expected them to stay up. Solanke, to be fair to him, has been massive for them, and no one probably expected that in the Premier League, given how he was at us. So fair play to them for staying up. I thought they'd go straight back down, hence why we put them bottom. I'm not even really ashamed of that prediction, to be honest with you, because I think if you asked 99% of fans, they'd all agree.
And also, just jump in, like their expected points was 34.7, which obviously expected goals, expected points are like on paper, and it's a very finicky thing. But that's the fewest in the Prem. They overperformed the best out of anybody, and so not the best, but in terms of they had the lowest expected points, and they finished 15th. So it kind of showed the reduction in quality by a lot of teams around them, where they will need to make some moves this summer. They're not obviously a certainty to stay up in the slightest. So I don't regret that one. Like on paper, like they got lucky to stay up on paper.
Yeah, I agree. I think, going into next season, I think they're going to be in that 5 or 6 teams that heading into the season, definitely could go down. And even though Gary O'Neill had a great season, unless they somehow can pull 150 million out and make a Premier League squad, I just don't think they're a Premier League side, if you want me to be honest. I look at their no disrespect to Bournemouth, and it's going to sound like I'm disrespecting them, but their fan base, their kind of aura around Bournemouth, I just think there's better teams who could be in the Prem. And maybe that's a hampering issue why they are a yo-yo club, but fair enough to them this season. They managed to stay up, and a pretty respectable 15th place considering they were in a relegation battle for at least half the season. Okay, our Merseyside neighbours are next, who we thought were going to be 19th, on the cusp of relegation again. Sadly, Bournemouth, who we've just praised, absolutely bottled it on the last day despite hammering them. And instead of finishing at 19th, they managed to hang on by the skin of their teeth, and 17th Matty, I'll let you start off this one. It was a sad day yesterday when they stayed up, wasn't it? But, it's the Everton way.
Yeah, I was gutted, and I live next door to a Blue who was screaming when they scored, which annoyed me even more. But that prediction, I think, is the most accurate we had, because when you watch the stream back, we were so adamant that Everton's squad was so bad that they were going to go down, and that was accurate. It's so bad, and they should have went down. They shouldn't have battered Brighton the other week, and if they wouldn't have done that, they'd be in the Championship now. They shouldn't have. Where that performance came from, I don't know, but that's what kept them up, in my opinion. That because they just battered Brighton and done us a favour, but they should have went down, and hopefully a point deduction this year. Maybe, fingers crossed, they go down next year. I just want them to go down for a year. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, before I move on to you, Jack, Jen, thank you very much for the super sticker. Massively appreciate it, as always. Jack, Everton, second season in a row they've been in the relegation zone. Second season in a row they've pitch invaded like they've won the Champions League after not being relegated. It's they're going to be there again next season, aren't they?
Unless they make some serious spending with a budget they won't have because of the financial issues that Matty already mentioned. Like, team's crap. Team is terrible, and they're not going to be able to sell Richarlison for £60 million again and be able to spend that money back in the squad, which I actually kind of forgot about him as the flop signing of the season for our awards teaser for that video to come. But they managed to bring in money like that, but who are they going to move on? Onana, maybe you can move him on for a fair bit of cash, but then you're losing one of your better performers in the squad. So the team needs improvement. Deitch, I think, is actually quite a good manager. Like, I think if he stays for another year, I don't know what his outlook looks like for staying for another 12 months. If they keep him, he honestly is worth almost 10 points as a manager by himself. So even if it's a 25-point squad, in terms of talent, they might just get a good amount of points because he's such a good manager, managing teams with lesser quality, lesser ambitions. So maybe he can keep him around for another year, but I'm going to be smacking them in 19th or 20th again next year unless they have a summer of unbelievable spending, which would be stunning because that doesn't seem like something that's really possible for them at this present moment.
Yeah, I think, they're going to be forced into selling their top players. I think Calvert-Lewin goes. I think there's a possibility Damari Gray goes. Pickford's going to be, one who could go as well. Onana. But you rip them players out and they're not going to have the money to replace it because they need to settle their FFP issues. And Everton haven't got the best track record of replacing the talent they've sold. So I think they're going to be in an absolute mess this summer as well. Okay, one that we got spectacularly wrong, Fulham. We had them to go 18th, the last place in our relegation. They managed to finish in the top table, albeit the bottom of the top, but they finished in 10th with 52 points. Matty, unbelievable season by Marco Silva and his side, right?
Yeah, unbelievable. No one expected that. Nobody. They've been up and down so much. Mitrovic has never really performed in the Premier League. He was unbelievable. And the all side just clicked. And I think the best thing they done was get rid of Scott Parker and get Silva in, to be fair. They build on that next year. They could be doing what Villa have done and getting European places. Because they performed that well this season. But then I do think it was a freak season, to be honest with you. And I can't see Fulham being in the top half of the table next year. I think it just happened because the season's so mad. But I didn't expect them to finish 10th. I really did think they'd go down because they're just one of them teams that are up and down, up and down, up and down. And fair play to them, unbelievable season. And what could they have had if they would have hung on to Marco Silva?
I know it's Jack. You look at their squad on paper, maybe not the best, not the worst either. But I think you've made some good signings there. Harry Wilson on a permanent deal a couple of years ago. A solid performer. Carlos Vinicius looks like a very capable backup. Other players who are slipping me mad. One player I was really impressed with, fellow countryman of yours, Tim Ream. Every time I watched him, the fellow was everywhere. I might have just caught him on his good days, but their defense was something that they really, relied on this season. And if they perform like that, they're a guarantee to be in the Premier League for years to come, aren't they?
Yeah, they had a really good structure, from Silva that he set up, and then they had some really nice talent around it. Willian, I think, surprised a lot of people by, even though he's 33, he was quite good this year. He was a great option for them. Experienced. I mean, he's won a lot of trophies, I presume. He's been at some pretty big clubs. Andreas Pereira, unbelievable in the midfield. He had 10 goals and assists combined. And then when you got a guy like Mitrovic, you can just stick him in the back of the net. It's just a great thing to have. We saw it in that first match of the season. We played them to start the season off, and he was a big threat, just an outlet up front who could just change things around. And so they had the pieces to make things work, and they had a really good structure around it. I think they will need to make a few tweaks, few moves to just kind of keep the squad fresh, keep it humming along. But you're getting another injection of cash from being in the Premier League for another year. I think Europe is a little premature. Like, I look at the squads that Villa and Brighton have and how they were able to make a push into Europe. And then you think about Spurs and Chelsea, who were outside of Europe entirely this year. You imagine they're going to want to try and make a run back at that. For Spurs, is much more up in the air. Really, I'm just, it was impressive from them. We saw it from the first match of the season. They were tough to beat at Craven Cottage. They took 2 points off of us, and it turned out to be that was kind of a decent point gained rather than like against a relegation contender. It was a mid-table team that we went to on the road in the Prem, and that's hard to get points at. So credit to them for that.
Yeah, I think it's they've done really well. They've maybe unlucky not to finish in European spots, but the competition all year was very good, and I'm sure their owners, if I'm not mistaken, is fairly well off as well, an American football owner. So wouldn't surprise me if they go out and spend a few $100 million. It's Fulham, London. We know that always attracts players. You've got bragging rights over Chelsea, who, as you can see, are a lot further up than Fulham on the table. But yeah, it's a good season by Fulham, and definitely one of the big surprises here. Before we move on to the next one, make sure you do leave a like on the video. Thank you for everybody commenting. It's great to see so many familiar faces again. We're going to be going ham all summer, with obviously no football, but we'll skip through the next few really quickly. Southampton, Jack, we had them very much in and around. I think it was between them, Leeds, and the three we had, we were kind of it could be any of them. Southampton, absolutely dreadful this season, and considering the players they've got, James Ward-Prowse, Lavia, Bella Kotchup, Kyle Walker-Peters, Che Adams, Adam Armstrong. That team is not a championship side, is it?
No, they got a lot of talent, but they kind of had some just weird managerial choices that just kind of, what was it, Nathan Collins? Is that the dude's name, who came in and kind of blew things up for them? And they just had him for too long. He kind of reduced the morale around the squad, and then they were doomed after that. They couldn't, pull themselves up after that point because they have a lot of talent. I mean, I don't know how many are going to stick around, but if they keep a decent amount of players, or if they sell like a Ward-Prowse or a Lavia for a fair amount of money, because they will fetch that kind of money, they'll be able to invest at a rate championship clubs can't compete with. So they should be looking at themselves and saying, we should not have been relegated. We should be trying to bounce right back, trying to get right back up into the Premier League, because frankly, I mean, obviously Leicester also got relegated. Those two teams just frankly are not championship teams. They've established themselves as Premier League teams, and they'll want to come back pretty quickly after that because they have a lot of talent that will either stick with the club and tear it up in the championship, or get them a lot of money where they can kind of make, with that, come out with the parachute payments. They could make a big run at trying to get back up next year, because it's going to be a very competitive championship next year. It's looking like it's going to be a very great division. But honestly, they did kind of, we had some questions about them. They were in this spot, and I think it was honestly the name Southampton that kept them up. They were saying Bournemouth, Fulham, Everton, their squads in combination with their Premier League insecurities meant that we probably would have edged Southampton a little bit, but they were just in too deep a hole to dig out of. It doesn't matter if you were Southampton or whoever, you can't get out of the hole that they dug for themselves.
Yeah, and obviously we had them 17th. They finished dead last. Another one, Matty, who we had 16th, Leeds, finished 19th. Kind of saw it coming all season, and I think when Sam Allardyce come over, it's a different Premier League now, isn't it? The times of Sam Allardyce coming in and rescuing a team from relegation's gone. But Leeds sadly made that mistake, and they're back in the Championship.
Yeah, I'm gutted for them, to be fair. A lot of their family are Leeds fans, and I've sort of grown a bit of a soft spot for them because of their family, and I am gutted for them to see them go down again. And to be fair to Leeds, I know they had that one idiot fan this year, but their fans have been all right with us when they've come to Anfield and as a whole. And I just didn't expect them to go down, really. I expected big things from Jesse Marsh and the signings he brought in. And they looked like they had a good squad. And when you look at the Leeds squad, that shouldn't be in the Championship either. Like, you're looking at, like, Tyler Adams. Isn't he the captain of America, if I'm not mistaken?
I think Tim Ream is now.
But he's up there. He's one of the senior players.
He's one of the they like him.
It is Adams. I looked it up. It is Adams.
Yeah, see, they've got international captains. They've got a good side, Leeds, and I think that when they sat Jesse Marsh, if they wanted to stay up, bringing in someone like Sam would have worked if they brought him in then, rather than changing managers again and again. And the same with Southampton, really. I think they got relegated the minute they sacked Hasenhüttl. I think if you stuck with him for the whole season, he would have stayed up, because then players would have eventually clicked for him in the system he wanted. And I think Leeds and Southampton were just victim of going through so many managers. The players couldn't get going under the manager because instantly they were sacked again, and they just were struggling to find form. And I do expect Leeds and Southampton to be two of the sides who come up next year, because there's of the sides that went down, they are strong. It just depends how much Southampton gets picked apart, because they've got some seriously talented players in that side. They tried to do the Dortmund approach, didn't they, last year, and buy all the best kids, and they're still unbelievably talented kids. Like, throughout that team, you can pick them apart. And similar with Leeds, really, I can't see like Tyler Adams playing in the Championship. I can't see Max Aronson playing in the Championship. I can't see Gnotto playing in the Championship. So if they get picked apart, they might struggle. They've both got very talented players, and it's a shame to see them go down, really, because they're both good clubs. I'd rather see someone like Everton go down than Leeds or Southampton, and that's not even being bitter. I think they just need a wakening up.
Yeah, I think I do. I think Leeds they really need to keep hold of their team. If they don't, they're in massive trouble, because they have a lot of exciting players.
You know what, where Leeds went wrong as well? They didn't play Adam Forshaw. When he plays, he's their best player by a country mile. He keeps the ball, he delivers it, and they didn't play him. And when they played him, they done all right. It's mad. Like, the managers were just clueless there.
Yeah. I mean, just a quick, look at the team. Tyler Adams, Notto, Somerville. There's 3 players that a lot of top Premier League clubs will be in for this summer. And, that's not to go, Max Harrison, Melier, who impressed his first season, maybe not so much this season, but they've got a lot of players there that teams are going to be in for. Okay, next one this was the last team who come up last season. We had them finishing the highest. We had them in 15th. Sorry,
did we get that right?
I know we got them 1 point off in 16th, so not too bad. Yeah, we'll definitely, with the rest of the table, we'll definitely take that, because we know what's coming up in the next 2. But Jack, they were struggling for a large majority of the Premier League season, but ex-Liverpool player Taiwo Awoniyi managed to get back fit, scored 6 goals in his last 4 games, really propelled them to, remaining in the Premier League. And it was a great end to the season. And I'm really happy that they kept Steve Cooper, because a lot of clubs were very reactionary. We talked about them, Leeds, Southampton.
Yeah.
Maybe if they stuck with Jesse March and Ralph Hasenhüttl, it'll be different. Steve Cooper and Nottingham Forest, they can say, look, stick with your manager. Sometimes it works, but I was quite impressed, considering it's the first long stint in the Premier League for a long time.
Yeah, no, they made a lot of moves and a lot of them stuck, which was really impressive for them. I mean, Morgan Gibbs-White was a big signing from Wolves. He had a lot of talent, and it was a question of can he translate it to being, a guy who can lead a side, and he really did. He really kicked things off. Incredible guy there. I never pronounce his name. Awoni. I won't. Oh, good lord, I'm gonna say Awoni. The guy from Liverpool. I mean, he had glimpses. It was a work permit issue, and there were questions. Maybe can we try and stick it out with him? I'm glad he made the move to Germany first, and then it was to Forest because he's really been able to get a foothold for himself, and he's a great Premier League option up front, which is fantastic for him that he's been able to find that foothold because he really was able to get them big goals and big matches to get them points because they were within that relegation discussion for a little while, but then they pulled themselves out of it, which I think really was quite impressive for their first year. And there was a really refreshing response, like you mentioned, Charlie. They were going to back their manager. They said he's facing a lot of scrutiny, a lot of criticism, but we believe in him and we're going to stick with him. And if we go down with him, we go down with him. And it worked out for them. So, they stuck by their man and it worked out for them, which you like to see. You like to see teams get rewarded for having that kind of dedication. So all in all, very good first season in the Premier League. You can't have many complaints, honestly, if you're here for another division, for another year with so many positives where you've got guys who have increased their value. And if you're not retaining them as great Premier League options, they could fetch a good amount of money if anyone tries to make a move for some of the guys.
Yeah, I mean, Matty, it's going to be very interesting. There's a lot of players who they've got on loan. Keylor Navas, who I think was a massive signing in the January window. He's on loan for them, probably going to be fairly expensive. Who else did they sign, man? My brain's gone blank. Who they signed on loan? I've just had him. He's on the tip of my tongue, man. Someone. Roma Lodi. That was it was in my head.
I think you could buy them permanently, because they bought a lot of players this summer who some didn't really stick. Like, didn't they buy about 7 or 8 strikers? And
I think they bought 34 players over the summer and January transfer window.
Than me, whether for a little bit of a loss, maybe some profit on some, I don't know. But there's players like Dean Henderson. They're probably not going to buy him. They'll probably go and buy Navas, but then
which is a right decision. He's a Champions League quality goalkeeper.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think they can sell some of the players they brought in that didn't stick. Like the only strikers they bought, I said from the start of the season, Awoni would be the one for them. I put him in my fantasy footy at the start, and I should have probably put him in at the end, but he's unbelievable for them, and they'll sell some of the players that they bought that didn't work this summer, and I think you'll see them bring in Navas, to be fair, because he's not going to go back. Where's he from? PSG? Is he on loan from now?
PSG, yeah. I think he's only got one more year left of him, right, too.
Yeah, so they won't get 10, 15 mil, I think they'd sell him for, because he's not going to play for PSG. They got Donnarumma. So I think they'll get him. Lodi, it depends. If Atletico stick with Simeone, then I reckon you'd get him. The new manager might come in and want to use him, but I think Forest will build on it. Their owner's not scared to spend money. So they'll just go and spend more money again this summer. To be fair, they're a big club. They do probably make a lot of revenue. So I think they'll have another massive summer, Forest.
Yeah, I completely agree. The next absolute shocker for us, Brighton and Hove Albion. We had them finishing 14th, with a great chance of going down, we thought. They finished 6th and are going to be playing with us in the Europa League next season. I mean, lads, it's a nightmare there, isn't it, Jack?
Yeah, no, horrifically wrong. I should have listened back to my rationale, because I would love to see what I thought, 10 months ago about, some of these clubs and where I am now, because this honestly shows how fickle we can be as fans. 12 months, one season can change things completely. We can go from one perspective on one player or manager or team to a completely different one, either justified or unjustified. And I think Brighton, we were saying, they had been good Premier League side for a few years. But we were wondering if Graham Potter was going to stick around and be the guy. Like, could he keep them around for another year? But they might kind of taper off a little bit. They've been kind of around for a little while. And we were, Potter moved on, which would have made it seem like we were closer to our prediction. But Roberto De Zerbi, he was my manager of the year in my pick for that, because he has done an unbelievable job of taking a side that has done incredibly well with scouting and talent identification, and they're going to move on Alexis McAllister and Moises Caicedo for a ton of money, probably nearly 150 million pounds for that midfield duo. It'll cost a couple Premier League sides. Good talent they've developed and made them an absolutely incredible team to watch. Their build-up play is phenomenal. They have one of the best tactical minds in the game. And Graham Potter is not a bad manager in the slightest. So maybe we should have given him a bit more credit when he was the manager considering for them. He obviously had a role to play in a different side, performing differently than our expectations. But really, we got it wrong. Hands up, we got it wrong. It's tough to justify that because it was just they had an unbelievable year.
Definitely. I mean, Matty, to give us a bit of slack, I think, I think when we talked about it, we said, Brighton always start out very good and Graham Potter kind of loses pace during the season. I think that was the main rationale for it. No one expected Graham Potter to be bought by Chelsea a few months into the season and then them to sign some tactical genius who, is in Ukraine. I mean, who could have saw that coming? But, fair play to Brighton. It's been an unbelievable season. And, the likes of Alexis McAllister, really, he's had a big breakthrough season this year. Probably going to land him a move to Liverpool, if reported to be true. Even look at the likes of Espetina, who's probably the best left back in the league this season. Enciso, again, great. Ferguson, great. They've had a lot of players have performed well for them, and it's definitely deserved, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when we recorded this prediction, no one really knew much about Alexis McAllister. Didn't expect him to come and have an unbelievable season and an unbelievable World Cup and win the World Cup in between it. Caicedo was just starting out. I think back then he was only on 500 quid a week or something at Brighton. Shows how much of an established player he was. Graham Potter, I think if he stayed, Brighton wouldn't have finished sixth. I think they would have finished mid-table, to be honest. And that's no qualm on Graham Potter, but he does lose pace towards the end of the season. So, yeah, De Zerbi was unbelievable for them. Unbelievable. And I think he'll do really well in Europe. Signing someone like James Milner is only going to improve them as well because his knowledge of how to navigate Europe, he's been in 3 Champions League finals with Liverpool and won one of them. So it's very smart moves. And Bloom is a very good owner and that model works for them. I don't think Brighton fans expect them to ever win the league or anything like that, but they're just having fun with it and they're doing well. And yeah, I do feel a bit stupid putting them bottom half. But to be fair, a lot of these mad signings that they've got from all over the world, no one expected them to be this good. So I don't think Brighton even expected to be selling the midfield duo for 150 mil after a year of playing together.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. It seems like they already have an McAllister replacement with Enciso. Be interesting to see, how much James Milner plays next season. But we'll see what they can do with European football next year. See if they can, continue to maybe push on to top 4. Another shocker, Brentford. We had them finishing, top of the bottom half in 13th. They finished just 2 points off European football in 9th with 59 points. Matty, great season by Thomas Frank's team. Ivan Toney in particular improved even more than we thought he could in his first season. And we got Mbuema and who's the other one? Can't remember his name. But great season by all of them and fully deserved 9th place.
Yeah, Thomas Frank's unbelievable as well, to be fair. And when we were talking about it, they haven't got anyone on paper where you look at them and think, yeah, they're going to do phenomenal this year. So when we put them 13th, it was like, yeah, they'll do okay. We don't think they'll go down. We think they'll have a good season. But Thomas Frank's worked wonders there, and Ivan Toney's been unbelievable. And just having a look at the signings they brought in, when we were doing the video, they brought in people like Ben Mee and that, who just went down. So we were sat there thinking like, well, I don't know how this is going to improve them from what they had the previous season. And to be fair, they've worked really, really well. They brought in some smart signings when you look at them, and for not much money either. The most he spent was on that Lewis Potter from Hull, and they spent 19 mil on him, but they got like Ben Meehan for nothing and stuff like
Nah, but
that.
he was probably, top 5 centre back in the league this season.
Yeah, he's probably Brentford's best player. He was unbelievable. So smart business, very good club. I like seeing clubs like that come up from the Championship and do well, though. To be fair, because you don't expect it, and yeah, I like the way they play. I like Thomas Frank, decent side.
I mean, Jack, heading into next season, it's going to be very difficult for them because Ivan Toney's going to be banned for 6 months of the season. He's going to miss half the season pretty much. So it's going to be very strange not seeing a very forward attacking. Give the ball to Toney and see what he can do.
Yeah.
But saying that, the last few games he did miss. I think they won both of them and he beat Man City. I know the season was over, but a couple of players had very impressive cameos, so it will be interesting if Frank can adapt to that, and if they do bring anyone in, right?
Yeah, I think they had a really nice system. When you got a guy who scores 20 goals in the Prem, it's hard to go down. It's hard to have a bad season, and Toney was unbelievable. And I think if he didn't have that ban for betting on matches, he really would be in a fantastic position to go on and be a big sale in the summer, from Brentford. And somebody would try to be sniffing around him. And somebody, we were rumored for him last summer. I think he's a Liverpool fan himself. So I think without him, it's fascinating what they're going to do from here because they're able to build a system around him. And Buemo looked fantastic, kind of as a strike partner to him, where he was able to be kind of the Robin to his Batman. Losing him, though, but not selling him is a weird spot because how do you build your squad? Do you build it with a short-term option to kind of replace him for the first half of the season? Do you maybe try and make the team less reliant on him, but then prepare for him to come back into it? I really don't know what they're going to do. It's a kind of awkward situation to deal with because they could go without him for a little while, but then you run the risk of maybe the team stalls a little bit without Toney and you have a bad first half of the season and he's coming into a team that's a bit down and out. So I really don't know what they're going to do because it was a great season last year in the Prem, but I just don't know how it's going to translate to this coming year because, Toney is a fantastically good player to have up there, some of the best forwards in the league, but you just don't know what you're going to be able to do and translate it because that's what you're looking forward to now. So I think it's going to be an interesting decision what they do going forward because it's a great platform to build from, nearly making Europe. I don't know if they're going to reach those heights again next year just because of the Toney ban, to be honest, is the biggest factor.
Yeah, definitely. I think probably best solution for them is, they should really expect Toney to be leaving, sell him next summer, bring in a replacement this year. I mean, he's not banned from training, so he's going to be training with the team regardless. Maybe he can take someone a bit younger under his wing, try and prepare them for the future. And, hopefully when he does leave, they've got a ready-made replacement there. But again, guys, please do leave a like on the video. Also, subscribe. We are very close to our next milestone, which I think is 7K. I can't remember. But make sure you do leave a like and subscribe. Okay, moving on to our mid-table picks. Probably the one we got the closest. One I can't think. Crystal Palace. We had them at 12th. They finished 11th. For a long time, Matty, they were in that relegation threat. I think we all rated Patrick Vieira very highly. I fought to get him this high up. I remember on our previous one, I think you had them in the relegation zone 2 years ago, and I fought to have him up, and he impressed his first season. This season, obviously, surprisingly got the sack. I think a lot of people had them going down when they signed Roy Hodgson again. But, Roy has come in, hasn't he, Matty, and impressed?
He's just played players where they're meant to be played. To be honest, that's what Vieira was doing wrongly. And I think at the start of the season, he missed players through injury because they've got some phenomenal players. Eze's unbelievable. Olise's unbelievable. Like, these are very, very talented players who I think Palace could be in trouble next summer. It depends what manager they bring in, but you can sure as hell guarantee big clubs will be in for Elise and Eze, and Zaha's obviously still not signed his contract, but I think he will stay. He's a Palace lad. He's from Croydon, so I think he will stay. But the others, they've got some good players that I can see people picking off. It's a club with a bit of uncertainty again. There's no manager there unless they announce someone in the next few days, because that's what Chelsea have done right, haven't they? Announcing Poch today, so they can start building from today. That's what Palace need to do if they want to do well next season. Because at the minute they're free for all, and people are coming in, and there's no manager to go, no, like you're not signing Eze offers. The owner might think, oh, yeah, I'll have that money. So
Yeah,
I hope to them.
Yeah, I mean, Jack, Roy has said that he's only going to take it as an interim job. I think he's probably pushing 80s now. But it's hard to walk away from football. Do you think, maybe if they can persuade him, they might give him a job for another year, try and get the team a bit more secure, or maybe take another risk and go with a Patrick Vieira type, which in the end didn't work?
It depends if you can find somebody who you think will be a good fit with the current talent you've got. I think you're building your next manager around the talent in the squad, not necessarily around, where they could take the club with. Like, you don't want a manager who's saying, I want to tear it down from the ground to the ground and build it back up, because you don't really have. I mean, Crystal Palace doesn't have that kind of pull, to rebuild. They've got some great pieces though. If they keep Zaha, they have some unbelievable forwards. You mentioned Eze, you mentioned Elise, Otso and Edouard, who had a very good first year in the Prem. Really, some great components in the attack. Just add a few midfielders, defenders. This is a team that really doesn't need to do a ton to stay in the Prem again next year. So maybe you bring in Hodgson for another year, maybe. But I really think that there's more ambitious options out there, managers that could do a lot with these players that they've got at their disposal. If you really want to make a punt for it, look at like a Graham Potter. Say, do you want to try it again with a mid-table Prem side? But I don't think that would ever happen. There are managers out there that really could transform this team and the talent they have. So I think you should try and be ambitious. But if one doesn't line up, you always got your like reliable option out back in Hodgson, where it's like, hey, he can do it for another year if we need him to.
Yeah, I think he is.
I reckon he might go for Gerrard. They went for Vieira, just a old midfielder. It wouldn't surprise me, because they're a team that doesn't have, like, Villa had the expectations to be in Europe, the players that they had. Palace fans don't expect to be in Europe. They expect just to be mid-table in the Prem. And their owner, I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of see your point, but I do disagree. Actually, what Jack has said, they actually have been linked with him today, surprisingly. So,
Okay.
Graham Potter, yeah. He's been linked with Nice and Crystal Palace. So, look, honestly, why not stick? Why not?
Though. I think that league, someone could beat PSG. One's come close this year.
Yeah.
Nice have got a good core. They've got Schmeichel in goal, Ross Barkley. I know these are players who weren't unbelievable in the Premier League, but they're going to be decent in the league. And, like, to be fair, Barkley's done all right there this year. They've got a decent squad. So if I was Potter, I'd go there, because I feel like if he was to go and win the league with Nice, it's better on his CV than getting Europe with Palace. So.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. I mean, going back to Palace, I'm very much. You look at Everton fans now. They were mid-table for years. They hated it. They were like, oh, blah blah blah, and now they would kill for mid-table. I think Palace fans are kind of getting in the same zone. They've been in the Premier League for a very long time. They have the fans are getting a bit ambitious. Rightfully, I think they probably got the best set of home fans in the league. But you complain about mid-table, but when you're in a relegation fight, you wish to be back in mid-table. I think some sides should be happy with mid-table, and I think Palace should be one of them sides. Sticking with Roy for me for another year, not the worst decision. Going on to our next one really quickly, Leicester, Jack. Definitely not a side we thought would be relegated. We had them in 11th, and they finished 18th.
When did we record this last video?
We recorded it 9 months ago, before the season started, I think, or it might have been when the transfer window ended. Anyway, Leicester were definitely not a side we expected to go down, was it?
I don't know where you would rank this in surprise and relegations in the recent Premier League history, but it's got to be up there. It got to be up there. They won the title 7 years ago. They won the title.
FA Cup the year before.
Like, they have so much talent. They are a Premier League staple. They are a team that you look at the table and you're like, Leicester's just a terrible team to kind of go on the road to. It's not a fun place to go to. Matty mentioned the stream yesterday. You were glad you saw them go down because their fans, pain in the ass. They should not be relegated. Should not. Brendan Rodgers was kept for far too long. The team kind of just deteriorated mentally. And they have a team of unbelievable talent. Unbelievable talent. Like, they are going to be picked apart and they're going to sell like crazy for justified reasons. Because, I mean, like, having a guy like James Maddison, like, he's up there with some of the best players in the Prem. But just incapable of putting a team together that was capable of keeping themselves around. And I'm slightly peeved at them because, if they had gone for the victory against Newcastle, would have left the door open for Champions League for us, but they packed it in to get a draw. So they ended up winning the last day of the season. They got 4 points from the last 2, which isn't bad. But obviously Everton winning meant that it was out of their hands. So I think they've got to look hard at themselves. They have a lot of, soul searching to do this summer to try and figure out how they're going to bounce back because, frankly, they won the title in the past decade. They won the Premier League in the last decade. And they're in the second division. That's unbelievable to me that they have allowed themselves to fall off like that.
Yeah, Helio said here, I think he means Leicester are only the second team in Premier League history to win it and ever get relegated.
Nope, only second team to ever get relegated. Yeah. Everybody else just stayed in the Prem for another year.
Yeah, obviously the other team being Blackburn. Matty, I can see them in a very similar situation to Blackburn, where they just struggle to get up for a long time. They're not happy with I say new owner. Obviously, the son has taken over after the father died. They're not happy with how he's running the club. Half of their players are going to be off this summer. James Maddison, Harvey Barnes, Jamie Vardy might be off.
Dewsbury Hall.
Sionchu's gone. It wouldn't surprise me if Ricardo Pereira goes. You can see them losing at least half of the team, and I don't see how they're going to get back up, for me personally.
No, I don't think they'll come back up. The reason I was asking when we record this video is because I think what sent Leicester down was losing Schmeichel and Fofana in the last month of the window. Losing them 2 players ruined them. They lost Schmeichel for £1 million, and they had to start with Danny Ward in goal for half a season. That's why they went down, because you replaced I'm not saying he was world class, but he was a very good Premier League goalkeeper. He won the league with them, won the FA Cup with them, the Community Shield with them. You sell him for £1 million, your club captain, and you put Danny Ward in goal. They were asking to go down. It's very, very poor business. If that owner knew that which it was spoke about all summer, they were going to lose Fofana. So why not bring in with that 80-odd million, which you know you're going to get from him? Go and get in, replace your squad. The money they got for Fofana, even in January, they should have invested in that side, and they maybe might have stayed up. But they've got to, like you said, they're going to lose all sorts, because players like Pereira and that, they could end up going to sides like Everton.
Tillemans is obviously walking for free as well. But
he's another one who's like, it's just, they're too good of a championship side. But like you said, they're going to get Blackburn because they're going to get picked apart, and this owner's probably not going to invest it, which is mad, really, because his dad died. You think he'd want to do everything in his honour, but I don't think he'll invest all the money in them. But good riddance to them. They're the worst fan base in this league, and I am made up, and I hope they go down and down and down. They are a horrible club. Horrible.
I mean, Patson Daka, another good one as well. Obviously, we tried to sign. Really, really quickly, obviously the other two teams maybe not the best, but question from Gary here: who would you sign? Jack, really quickly. I'm going to steal one, all different ones. My one would be Dewsbury Hall for the England talent. Jack,
Harvey Barnes,
and Matthew.
Probably Dewsbury Hall if you had to buy anyone from there.
Yeah, I think he would be a good backup, bit of a utility man. Wouldn't sign Matters, wouldn't go near him, don't like his attitude. Okay, next, we'll run over this one really quickly, kind of boring. Jack, Wolves, mid-table, they finished 13th, never really looked like going down. Lopetegui's a bit of a weird one, but I think he might be going. I think he's had a falling out. It's a bit of a boring side, to be fair, aren't they?
It's hard to call a Premier League side boring, but like they are as boring as you get, honestly. Like and you know what? To a credit, they're boring. You know, they were never at risk of being relegated. Sure, they didn't make a push at things up top, but that was kind of their first season, was it not? When they came into the Prem, was they made a big rush at it with Nuno Espirito Santo, but they were around. The fact that we put them like, what is it, dead middle of the table practically, like we know that they're a team that, you know, is going to be comfortably mid-table. We know what we get from Wolves. I do wonder if there's too much turnover if they move on from Lopetegui. Maybe you bring in a little too much uncertainty over the next season. So maybe next year's a little more ropey. But look, this is a team that justifiably I think was in a pretty good spot, you know, this year. Good talent. You know, maybe Ruben Neves, a lot of rumors about his departure, would be a big loss in the spine of that team because he's built to be kind of just the anchor point of a side like Wolves, who has a lot of mobility to bring them up, carry them up, but he also just prevents them from dropping too far down because of his just steadiness in the midfield.
Yeah, Matty, I'm going to skip you with Wolves because boring. We'll start with probably the biggest overachievers. I think everybody has forgot that everyone had these mid-table in predictions. They were nowhere near a top 4 team. I don't think anybody expected Isaac to hit the floor. I don't think anybody expected Callum Wilson to come in and be, you know, unbelievable for them. I don't think anybody expected Eddie Howe to, you know, manage this team to the ground. Even Kieran Trippier, you know, it's probably his best season in the Premier League, and he had some good ones with Spurs. Matty, this is a unbelievable season for Newcastle, isn't it?
Unbelievable. But I think they got top 4 too soon. And I think Eddie Howe will be victim of his own success and could be gone by Christmas because not one player in that side is experienced what a Champions League's like. Now, yeah, it's massive for a club in terms of revenue and stuff, but the travelling, having to play twice a week, every week, the pressure coming up against sides like you could get and people like Real Madrid now in the group. I don't think they'll make it out the group, but a fantastic season by them. No one would have expected them to get top 4 at all. They were very, very good to finish third in the Premier League ahead of sides like Chelsea, Tottenham, Liverpool, United. It's massive for them, but I do think he'll be victim of his own success because that side, if they want to compete in the Champions League and get out the groups, they need about 8 players because they're a very good Premier League side, but they're not. I don't think they'll be a very good European side. Imagine Callum Wilson coming up against like Courtois and Real Madrid. Is he still going to bag? Like that's what they need to improve on. But now they've got that Champions League revenue very early on with these owners. Going to have mad sponsorships coming in. Going to be loads of companies getting made, sponsoring socks and shoes and everything for Newcastle. And they could go. Eddie Howe said they're going to have a few marquee signings. Don't be surprised if they bring players like Neymar and Narin, who wouldn't worry me, really. But they'll end up bringing people in like your Neymars and Pogbas and crap like that just because it's like, oh, look at us, we can get them. And I think that's what will be victim of his own success because Eddie Howe's shown when he has a bit of money, buys players like Jordan Ibe and that. So,
yeah, I mean, Jacket, you know, they very much fast track their way to top 4. I think they would have been happy with, you know, even where we've put them. You know, probably we had them challenging for maybe a Conference League spot. I think that would have been a good way to build on the season. I think they spent 170-ish mil in the summer. Bruno's been an unbelievable signing, probably one of the best midfielders in the Prem this year. Isaac hit the ground running, you know, had some issues with injuries, but great signing. Sven Botman is probably my Newcastle player of the year. I'm gutted we didn't sign him. Virgil van Dijk, he will be, you know, he will be not as good as him, but he'll be probably the closest Netherlands player they have to him in a while. And Nick Pope, you know, it's smart business, and if they do that again, you know, they're going to be a mainstay in that top 4 hunt, aren't they?
Really are. And they took players at prices that other clubs weren't really prepared to go to. You know, look at like Trippier, you mentioned Pope, Botman, Guimaraes, guys that other clubs were willing to go for, but they had a few reservations about. They took a gamble on them. They took a lot of gambles, and a lot of them paid off. Isaac, they spent a lot of money getting him from Sociedad, and he looks unbelievable. Not just a goal scorer, but he's an all-round player. I mean, people were saying closely to Thierry Henry in today's game. Like, that's an unbelievable signing to make, where you got a guy that young, comes into the Prem at 22, and is just an absolutely balling out signing. So I don't think you can look at Newcastle and say they're going to struggle for any time. It doesn't matter if they drop out of the group stage. They can finish 4th in the Champions League group stage. It doesn't matter. They're in the Champions League. They have got that prestige to bring players into the club, and they've proven to the players they brought in. They said, our ambitions are high. You're coming here to get a lot of money, but we view ourselves as a team of the future. And Guimaraes, Joelinton, all the players they've signed in recent years who are younger, Botman especially as well, and they're going to Newcastle over clubs that have Europe, they're going to be convinced to stay. And other players are who maybe have reservations about Newcastle, those have gone away. So I think that it's big move for Newcastle. And I think that this is just going to be a team that's going to catapult into the future.
Yeah, definitely. Run through the next ones really quickly. I know, Matty, you might have to drop out the stream, but no worries at all. But I'll go on to the next one. Aston Villa, we had them 8th. They finished 7th. I think that's pretty good. Definitely, Matty, I'll leave this with you if you need to go on the next one. But it was Unai Emery, absolutely unbelievable season from him. He came in and turned this team around, got players playing, and now he's got them Europa League football, which is probably where he deserves to be.
Yeah, we can't take any credit for having them 8th, though, close to the European places, because this was when Gerrard was manager, and they were abysmal. So
we let sentiment get to our heads then.
Yeah, but Gerrard was manager. But to be fair, Gerrard brought in players who probably only Steven Gerrard could attract at Aston Villa. Some of the players he brought in were fantastic. They were very unfortunate to lose Carlos early on. And they're going to build on it. They're a massive, massive side, and they definitely deserve to be in European places. So fair play to them. Good side. Emery, for me, manager of the season. When he came in, they were in the relegation battle, really. I think, were they 17th when he came in? And he got them up. Got them up to 7th. Now, I know it's only Conference League, but for a side like Villa, who a couple of years ago were in the Championship, or 3-4 years ago they were in the Championship?
Yeah.
To now be in European places in the Premier League, above the likes of Chelsea, who spent 700 million. It's massive for them, and they've done well. Emery worked wonders, absolute wonders, so fair play to them, and they deserve to be 7th. But we can't take no credit for having them that close, because Stevie G was abysmal there.
Yeah. Next one, Jack, Manchester United. It was. I think they've overachieved. I don't think they deserve to be where they are. I think they've been very lucky with a lot of results that they got. But we had them finishing in 7th. They finished 3rd. It's a good position for them.
Yeah.
Shame, really. They got smashed so many times this season. Got smashed 7-0 by us, 4-0 by Brentford, 6-2, I think, by City. I think we'll look back on this season from Manchester United and think, how did we let them get top 4?
100%. This is a team that's got a lot of flaws to it. They play a very regressive style of football. And, they've done very well for themselves to get top 4, because Ten Hag, I don't think was expected to do this well in his first year to win a trophy and get top 4. But and if they beat City, which is a very long shot, I give them a 10% chance, if that, to beat City in the FA Cup final. If they win 2 trophies, top 4 in their first year, that's got to be a damn near 10 out of 10 season for Ten Hag. And no pun intended there in the slightest in that first season. So they had flaws. They should have finished closer to 7th than they did. They made a few signings, if I'm not mistaken, after we made our predictions on the 4th of August last year. So they've got like a flawed team. But I don't know. I think that we will kind of look at that and say, how on earth did they finish above us? And they took that spot from us. And we have only ourselves to blame for being so woefully inconsistent, because we beat them 7-0 at home, which is a phenomenal thing to have. You beat your biggest rivals 7-0, which we will remember forever. Just how funny it was when they kept on conceding goals. And Lisandro Martinez running away from Mohamed Salah after getting spun by him. But, it's credit to them. They managed to squeeze things out. We're seeing the comments there. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true. I've just checked. Fabrizio Romano, Adrian stays at Liverpool for next season. Deal has been signed and will be unveiled soon. Don't really care. There's going to be a massive blow up on Twitter, but at the end of the day, he's our fair choice goalkeeper. We're going to sign. If we don't get rid of Kelleher, we're going to sign somebody. So I'm not really bothered. I don't know if you watch Man City's like training videos.
I was going to say something just like that.
They have Scott Carson. They love him. Liverpool players seem to love him. He's got a great personality. He knows he's not going to be playing football, so it is what it is. I'm not really asked, if I'm going to be honest.
Who cares? Who cares?
Exactly.
He's the third choice. People saying the homegrown spot. I would love somebody to break it down and explain to me why we're so pressed for a homegrown spot. Like, okay, let's say we move on Fabio Carvalho and Joe Gomez, and like we do what we all are praying for and move on Jordan Henderson. Like then maybe we're like, okay, we need to bring some English players. But I don't really care. Like I don't really care that our third choice goalkeeper is staying around for another year. Yeah. Look at it positively. That is £3 million you don't need to spend on some bum from Germany. You can just be the third choice goalkeeper.
Exactly. I think he's one of the lower earners as well. I think he's only on I'm going to say only, but I think he's on like 40 or 50 grand a week, which is probably bottom 10% of our earners. So, hello, Adrian. Welcome. Enjoy your parties at Alison's house, which you always are. Okay, next one. West Ham obviously finished 7th last season. They are 14th. I do want to give them a bit of leeway, Jack, because they have managed to get themselves into the Conference League final.
Yeah.
That's definitely played a part in them finishing so low. Just focused on that. And, I don't mind West Ham, and I kind of hope that they win the Conference League. I think it'd be good for them. And, they might be in Europa League next season if they win that. So it's an interesting season for them. But if they win the Europa League, if they win the Conference League, probably the best season in recent memory for them fans.
Yeah, you win a trophy, it doesn't matter, I think, where you finish. The end result for next year will be the exact same. They will be in the Europa League if they win the Conference League. So, look, the Conference League also kind of vindicates that they had the talent. And with Declan Rice, who is a top-class defensive midfielder, one of the best in the world, you've got an unbelievable leader in that sense. This is a team that should have finished higher, but they prioritized the European campaign. I mean, they were resting players for like that City match that Arsenal fans got very upset about in the title race towards the back end of the year because they wanted to rest them for their semifinal matchup. So if they win that, 10 out of 10 season for them, honestly, because they'll have Europe for next year. But if they don't, they'll feel a little miffed, but they won't, I think, regret a European run like that too much. So
they're still in the league at the end of the day, which, it is what it is. They can push, look at pushing next season. Okay, our fifth place, who we are just missing out on Champions League. Obviously, we're the main title challengers for Manchester City. Arsenal, who finished second. Bit of a mare there, but I would have been on the same page as you, if I'm going to be honest, lads, because I think I'll talk more about it. I don't think they're going to have the same effectiveness next season. I think this is a freak season for them. I will hold my hat up if I'm wrong. I think they caught Man City on a very good year. And Man City turned the gas on towards the end. But, Jack, they've made some good signings, but they do really need to build on it, don't they?
100%. If they don't, then they could fall off a bit. But I think what I'm seeing a lot from them is they want to sign both Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo, which, if they do that, transforms the team, keeps them evolving, improves them, and they are at a spot where they really only need to sign 2 marquee guys, and they can make do with whatever they have else in the rest of the squad. So, look, definitely benefited from the fact that Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, and even United in large stretches of the year were poor in a lot of areas, and City won it with 89 points. Like, we got more than that in like 3 seasons. We won 1 title.
Yeah.
So we are a little unfortunate in the sense that we picked the wrong years to make a massive run at it. But we also pushed City a lot harder than Arsenal did. They had a great year. I think they're not going to – they have so much young talent, one of the best managers in the world in Arteta. They're going to be great again next year. They are going to spend a lot of money because they've earned it. So I think really it's just going to be a great launching point because, it's a comment there from Ant, like you don't expect them to make the run, City do, but they will always make that run late in the title race. They'll just keep up. They'll win matches like robots, and you're like, oh, they'll drop a match every now and then because that's what humans do. But they're not humans; they're oil-funded robots, or oil-fueled robots, I should say. And so, great year for them, though. I mean, we had them on the precipice just outside. We wondered if they were too young. And they really, I don't think I can see them regressing too much because they have so many young players that are going to continue to gel around each other. And they might sound like a João Cancelo from City, which would be another really interesting signing. So,
yeah,
a lot of reason for optimism.
Definitely, you never know. I'm not sold on it, but that might just be my, weird hatred for Arsenal, which I'm not sure it comes from, but it just happens. Yeah. Okay, moving on to our Champions League places. We'll start off with a couple of absolute nightmares. Tottenham Hotspur. To be fair, didn't expect them to have a million different managers, with none of them working out, but what I think is absolutely mind-boggling is they have had a striker get 30 goals and he finished 8th. Like, that is absolutely mental. Like people are overlooking it because of Haaland's season, but that is probably like a top 5 striker campaign, and it is just gone under the radar. But you look at where it's gone wrong for them. Defense. Eric Dyer is shambolic. Hugo Lloris is shambolic. Pedro Porro maybe might turn good, but really didn't impress me. Ben Davis not very good, and I'll die on this hill. Christian Romero is an absolute dreadful defender. The fella would be better as a defensive midfielder. He is not a centre back, and if they keep playing him in a back three, they'll be in the same situation next year. But Jack, I'll let you defend yourself with your top 4 pick.
They had Antonio Conte. They did, and I'm a big Conte fan. I think he's a winner. But he also just kind of, he was just like, this is the history of the club. Like, this is Tottenham. Like, we bottle things, and it's like, how are you saying that? How are you saying that publicly? Look, I mean, nobody expected them to be out of it completely, especially because the teams around them just exploded. Like, I think it really is tough in hindsight, but they should be better. They should be better. You have Harry Kane. Like, you have got an all-time great striker, and you can't manage to eke out even a European place? Like, come on now. He should move on this summer. Harry Kane should. And if we hadn't signed Nunez and Gakpo, I would be back on the train of saying Harry Kane would have been the perfect Roberto Firmino replacement. Guy who can drop deep, link up play, but just take all of Firmino's great qualities and then stick a world-class finisher on top of that. That would have been him. But we shouldn't sign him now, obviously. So I think he'll go to United. Should sign him. If United sign him, I'm actually worried about Manchester United. If Madrid sign him, they'd be great again. But Tottenham have just wasted the prime of one of the great players of our time from bad investment and everything down from there. So it's disappointing for them, obviously. You think, I'm interested, Charlie, in your opinion, which is a bigger letdown? Spurs not getting top 4 or us not getting top 4? I imagine it's us. That's a dumb question.
Yeah, it was definitely. I think you look at Spurs, though, they've wasted this season. Yeah. It's you look at the manager, who's going to come in. They have had 2 football greats, Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte, who have both publicly criticised how that club is run. They will not do anything until Levi leaves that club, and he won't because he holds so many shares in it. And I don't understand. I don't know what manager they get that comes in and fixes this club with Levi involved.
They're getting rejected by everybody. Every manager's turning them down.
Arne Slot, I didn't even know who the fellow was. Like, yes, he's been great with Feyenoord this season, I think. Yeah. Feyenoord, PSV Feyenoord. But is he going to come in and be unbelievable? Let's be honest, not really. Maurizio Pochettino, they probably should have signed, but they've bottled that now. Anyway, on to the biggest disappointment of the season, the biggest underachiever, Mr. We spend £600 million and somehow finished 12th below our championship level rival team Fulham. Absolutely bananas, criminal. Some would say that they finished this low, but I mean, terrible signings, really, isn't it, Jack? I mean, let's have a little look at their signings. What signings have been good? Maybe Bashir Dilly is probably the standout one, but you look at the rest. Aubameyang, terrible. Mudryk, probably the worst signing in Premier League history. 100 million. Has to be money laundering to Ukraine. It has to be. Cucurella, dreadful. Enzo Fernandez, okay, probably he'll turn out good, but I don't think he's lived up to the hype at all. Wesley Fofana, dreadful. Spun by Bruno Fernandes, which is embarrassing for him. There's probably another 20 players or so that I'm missing in there. Chukwueze from Aston Villa.
Yeah, he's been all right. He's been all right. He's actually been one of the really decent players.
When he's played, Detro Fofana hasn't played. João Felix. Look, I don't care. That he's not good enough for the Premier League. He's too weak. He's not good link-up play. He's not the greatest finisher. If they sign him, great, because I don't think he'll cause any issues. But Jack, they're in a rut now with no Champions League, aren't they? I don't know how they're going to spend enough money to fix this team.
They're going to, though. That's what pisses me off. There's absolutely no repercussions. Like they're going to spend an inordinate amount of money, completely fail, have to fire a couple managers. They fired 2 managers in the last 8 months. And they are going to then turn around and say, let's go buy Victor Osimhen for £100 million or Dusan Vlahovic for £100 million and try and solve that number 9 crisis. But it just infuriates me, because if you gave Klopp £600 million, he wouldn't lose a game. He wouldn't lose a game if you gave him that kind of cash. But instead, the ineptitude of Chelsea is rewarded with limitless finances, which, they finished 12th. That is just so stupid. You spent that much money. So many people should lose their jobs. Like managers, players.
Another dreadful sign. Sorry, I had to get that one out because he's crap as well.
They have so much talent. It boggles the mind. Talent? They got talent, man.
Who's talent? So
all these players are. You cannot tell me that a guy like, look at what Mudryk did against us in that first match.
I don't care.
He spun like 3 players and missed a shot. But like, you can't tell me that someone who can do that in like a microcosm can't do it like 3 or 4 more times.
Of course they can't. Who did he spin? James Milner.
That's true.
I could spin James Milner. I think he spun Joe Gomez as well, who's absolutely dreadful at football. Balassi, look at Balassi when he's playing in the Premier League, taking the mick out of everyone. I promise you, Mudryk in 3 years will be playing with a championship side, or he's moved to the Serie A playing with Empoli or somebody like that. That will go down as the worst signing in Premier League history. He is fast, and that is it. That is it.
He's up there.
Up there is the worst players in the league. I agree.
Okay. They're the worst signings ever. Yeah, 100%.
Definitely, yeah. Okay, next one. We won't cook Chelsea anymore because their fan base is sensitive and they think they've just won the league signing Pochettino. But we'll see how that works out. Anyway, our Premier League winners, who we had in second, Manchester City. We all doubted Erling Haaland. I don't think anyone thought he would be this good. I am going to stick my neck out on the line, though. I don't think it's the best season from a Premier League striker we've seen. I think if you play Luis Suarez's and Erling Haaland's seasons next to each other, there's not one person who understands football would say Haaland's is better.
Yeah,
because all around that season, even you could put Salah's up there. Maybe that's a bit pushing it, but Haaland was great. I think towards the end, he really clicked and found how to work with him a lot better than he did in the beginning. But it's just a shame we weren't there. We weren't putting on 90, 98 and 97 point seasons.
I just wish Matty was still here because I would love to just ask him. He said wasn't going to break 14, 15 goals. Holland wasn't. I was just like, how can, like, I didn't know. I thought he was going to make them worse. That is my big mistake. I thought Holland was going to make City a worse team.
But he did make them worse, just not by enough to make it matter.
Exactly. So, like, they did regress a little bit, but he was also just banging goals in matches that were just, like, just kind of carried them in a lot of senses. So I think that he got a lot of goals, but he's a robot. Not a robot, does the job, scores goals, bangs them in, but not the most beautiful to watch. I agree. Suarez and I would argue Salah better individual years, but it doesn't matter. You're talking about a bronze place finish of the top 3 attacking seasons in a Premier League season. You maybe toss Ronaldo's Ballon d'Or season in there, but you're talking about some of the greatest performances of all time. And if he's up there, like, who really cares? It's his first year in the Premier League. Like, he's going to continue to bang him in until he goes to Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern Munich, who hopefully take his terror away from us in the Premier League. We thought it was going to be us and them, but if it wasn't us around them, no one was really going to be able to challenge them. Arsenal were close, like, in the final point tally, but they weren't close. Like, they weren't close. They did not have the title race gene that we had. Like, we drew matches against Swansea and Everton in January, and that cost us in a title race. We had like 1 defeat in 1 year in the entire season, and it was to City. At least we caused some fear for them and made them really work for it. But they took their lessons they learned from racing us in titles and then faced this little minnow and mentality, weakness team, and was able to just cruise past them. So credit to them. They might win the treble. They might win 3 in a row, which if they win the treble to win 3 consecutive Prem titles, it's the best side in Premier League history as like a unit. Maybe not a 1-year team, but like
I don't think so.
They've won 5 of 6. If they win a Champions League, we literally have no arguments against them anymore.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't even think this is the best Man City side.
No, not this group. But I'm saying, like, this becomes Pep Guardiola and Manchester City becomes over these 5-6 years the best group of players ever. You have your De Bruyne's, Bernardo Silva's, Aguero kind of roped into their company.
If they win a Champions League, Aguero's doing a John Terry. He's sitting in the stands with a full Man City kit on, and he's going to be on the stage lifting the trophy. I promise you. A bit like he did with Argentina. Shameless. Anyway, move on to who we had champions, who sadly finished 5th, just missing out on top 4. Liverpool. I mean, Jack, we've talked about it all season. It's probably a 2 out of 10 season for us, isn't it? As Mo Salah said, the minimum is Champions League qualification. That's all we should expect. We bottled the FA Cup, we bottled the Carabao Cup, we not really bottled the Champions League because at the end of the day, Madrid were just better. But we could sit here for another hour and 20 minutes talking about what went wrong. But at the end of the day, when you look at it, the midfield and defense throughout the year just wasn't good enough, was it?
No, the team just fell apart. Like, the incapability of our midfield to support our press when our system fell apart. Klopp didn't want to adapt, and we just didn't make moves in time. We said it. We screamed from the hilltops. Need a midfielder. Need a midfielder. Now we need 4. Well done, FSG. Everyone knows we need 4 midfielders, so they can hold our heads under the water to be like, give us 20 million more pounds, because and we know that you need a new midfielder. So, it's been the most slow death for the last 3 weeks, seeing us, try and climb back into the Champions League spots. But we just left it too late. We're 10 unbeaten, but we just couldn't. Maybe it's 11 unbeaten now. I forget what it is, but we went on a nice run to end the year, but we just completely crapped our pants after the World Cup. It was unbelievable how bad we fell off. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think loyalty plays a part of that, and I think we'll look back on this season. Yes, individual players weren't great, but who's selecting them individual players? So it's a lot of people have got to improve next season. Liverpool players and Jurgen Klopp. Will we see that? Who knows? But as Jack said, we probably need minimum 3, if not 4 midfielders. Probably need a right back and a centre back. Will we get that? Who knows? But we do need to spend upwards of 150 million this summer, which brings us on to tomorrow's stream with Jack. I know this has been a very long one. Didn't expect it to be this long, but hope if you have stuck around, I hope you enjoyed it. Or if you're watching it back and you managed to get this far, massively appreciate it. Tomorrow's stream, we'll give you a sneak peek especially if you stayed around this long. Tomorrow's stream is going to be a nice little Dream Summer video stream with Jack. I'll let you explain that a little bit if you'd like.
Yeah, basically, have we made a Twitter post yet, Charlie?
No, I'm going to do it after this.
Beautiful. So head over to the LFC Transfer Room on Twitter. Folks are going to reply with their dream summer. Should we give them a budget, Charlie? Or should we say just pick your own budget?
Should we do 3 midfielders, centre back and DM, centre back and right back?
Or what we could do is say it's a net spend, so you can sell players to fall under this budget. But say you want to sign like 4 midfielders and 3 center backs, you got to sell a good chunk of players. So then you could see, like, I want to get Chedu to reply with one of his insane summers. So we just lead off with that one where it's like
sign Barella 100 million.
Exactly. Yeah. So that'll be on the Twitter. You can reply there. We'll take a look at some of the best ones, react to them, some dream summers there. Kind of similar to this, where we'll have our faces small off to the side and just kind of what people would like to see happen. So I'm excited for it. Make sure you kind of jump back in on that. It should be a real fun time. But yeah, this was fun. Honestly, like it humbles me, Charlie. It humbles me about how bad I was at this last year.
Yeah.
And I like to try and refute when people are like, "You're an American, you don't know what you're talking about." And then I just had to sit and eat my own crap for the last hour and a half because I don't know what I'm talking about as an American.
You know what? You had Matty with you, and Matty claims to be this all professional, this all prophetic, football knowledge, and even he's got it wrong. It's I don't think any Premier League predictions ever been spot on. The fact we didn't even get one position right is a bit sad, but it is what it is, and we will be doing this next season. So we'll be doing our Premier League predictions. We'll do it, before the season starts, as we did this year. So we'll do that. We might react to them next year as well. So who knows? If you're around with us long enough, you'll get to see that. Wednesday, we are going to have a award stream with James. So we'll be doing Liverpool awards for the season, as well as the Premier League awards. So stick around, get who you thought on. It'll be a very interactive one. James will be pulling up comments, discussing all your options. And yeah, and then we might be, for the lucky ones, Jen, I know you like this, Gary as well, we will be having an end of the season quiz, potentially on Friday or Saturday, which I might be hosting. I haven't decided yet. I haven't decided if I want to take part. But I'll have to handicap Matty if I do that. But anyway, thank you so much for joining. If you stuck around, massively appreciate it. If you are watching after the stream has ended, make sure you leave a like. Also, do subscribe to us with them bell notifications on. And if you do want to become a member, it is just in the description. You could have a very cool little name like Jen does next to her. I think I am only a month away from having 12 a year. So I'm looking forward to showing off that badge. But yeah, make sure you do all that stuff. Share the stream if you can. But as Jack said, go on Twitter. That link will be up in next 15-20 minutes. So make sure you check that out. But I've been Charlie. This has been Jack. Matty has just gone. Thank you for watching and goodbye.